Ready?
Ready.
So the most important thing when you're throwing a tomahawk is figuring out the rotations, all right? So when you're just starting out, it's probably easiest to start with just one rotation. So as the tomahawk is flying through the air, from the time it leaves your hand to the time it hits the target, it needs to complete one rotation, all right? And there's two main ways to control the rotation of your tomahawk as it is flying through the air, all right? The first is just distance. So you need to figure out approximately how far away you need to stand to throw your tomahawk to get one rotation on there. And that's going to be different for everybody depending on the length of your arms, depending on your height, maybe even depending on how hard you're throwing it, all right? So the second way is how high up you grip the handle. We'll talk more about grip in a second, but if you hold the tomahawk lower down on the handle, like so, it's going to rotate faster. And you can slow down the rotation by gripping it up higher on the handle, all right? So the first thing you should do is figure out your distance, how far away to stand from the target, and then once you kind of get a rough approximation of that, you can gradually slow it down or speed it up by gripping higher or lower on the handle. Now what you're looking for optimally is you want 45 degrees. You want it to hit the target about like that. If you've hit it like this, it has rotated too much, because if it rotates any more, it's just going to bounce off the target. If you hit it like this into the target and it's shy of 45 degrees and it has not rotated enough. If it rotated any less, again, the blade wouldn't hit the target at all. So what you do first is about find your distance and then look at the tomahawk and see where it's hitting into the target. And then from there, adjust your distance a little bit, maybe take a step forward, take a step back, and then also experiment with where you're holding the handle. A lot of throwing a tomahawk is just trial and error. You just got to experiment and see what works. I can't really tell you exactly how to do it through a video because, like I said, it's gonna be different for everybody. So it's just trial and error. Just figure out what works for you and what doesn't work, and just practice and experiment with it. All right, so I'm gonna talk about grip for a second. All right, so I mentioned you can hold the tomahawk higher or lower on the handle. The main thing you need to worry about, and this is what you have to get right, is you need to make sure the blade is facing straight down. All right, so I've heard people say when you hold your hand out for a handshake, hold your hand out like you're going for a handshake, and then you're shaking hands with the tomahawk. So it's gonna sit in your hand at a bit of an angle, all right? And if you look at this handle, it is kind of oval shaped, it's kind of shaped like an eye, all right? You want the ridge of that to be sitting in your knuckles and the curve of your fingers, all right? The main thing is you need the tomahawk pointing straight at the ground, all right, like so, all right? And don't adjust your wrist. Don't twist your wrist to get that right. Adjust the tomahawk in your grip, all right? So make sure it's just straight up and down, because if it's curved either in or out, and if it's curved like that when you throw it, it's gonna wobble like that through the air, and you're reducing your chance of the blade hitting the target. If it's nice and straight and it's swinging through the air, it's gonna hit the blade straight on, or it's gonna hit the target straight on the blade, and it's gonna stick. If it hits the target like that, it's more likely to just kind of glance off. So make sure you have a nice straight up and down grip. All right, so we've gone over distance and grip. The last thing we need to think about is how to actually throw the tomahawk, all right? So you're holding it just straight, straight up and down just like that, and you are letting it go. You're letting it go about here, and you're trying to swing the tomahawk perfectly straight over your head, all right? You're not curving it like a baseball or a football at all. It's just chopping motion, just straight over your head, all right? And you're not just throwing it standing up and down stiff as a plank. You got to put your kind of lean into it. Push off with your back foot a little bit. All right, let's see if we can get a hit. All right, so that's my hit. That's all right. It's pretty good. It probably should have rotated a little bit more because you see the handle is almost straight up and down. So that's not perfect. It's not a bad hit. Would have been better if it was kind of sticking out a little bit more at a 45-degree angle. But to get it out, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab it and kind of rock it back and forth in the wood and hold on to the wood there and kind of just get it back. And that was a good hit. It was stuck in there nice and deep. But yeah, it would have been a little bit better if it was stuck in about there rather than straight up and down like that. But it's all right. It's pretty good. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about real quick is just some safety things. All right, when you're doing this, be careful, because if you throw it wrong and you rotate too much and it hits the top of the axe, it can bounce off and go flying every which way. It can hit you, it can hit somebody else. So when you're throwing, make sure no one else is standing near the target, make sure no one's standing behind you. When you swing back with the axe, you don't want to bean somebody in the side of the head. And if it bounces back, make sure it doesn't hit you. So just be careful, start slow, don't bite off more than you can chew, throwing too hard. So just be careful while you're doing this. Jacob wants to take his shot at throwing the tomahawk, so we're gonna see how that goes. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Click subscribe if you haven't already. If you're looking for a good tomahawk to start throwing with, we actually sell these very tomahawks in our store, to which there is a link to our website down in the description. If you want to see how I built this little makeshift target, there will be a button to watch that video somewhere around my head, and also a video to learn how to throw a knife, also somewhere around my head. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.